Hey, how's it going, everyone? Just want to do a video, just talk about the Hebrew Israelite groups. It's just it's becoming more and more clear how really broken the entire world is. From A to Z, and I'm already kind of a doomsday person, and it's just it's crazy to see all the different problems that are happening in the world really exist, everywhere, from, religious groups, financial sector, health, education, corporate world, like everything. And so, it's crazy because, one would think that there would be a group on earth that, maybe not have comprehensive knowledge, because obviously no one knows everything, but, a group that is truly aggressively seeking the truth, and as it gets revealed, to us, they're constantly pushing more and more truth, and they would be like centralized, and they would be God's representative. So, not saying those people don't exist, but it doesn't look like they exist in groups, at least that I've discovered yet. I'm hoping to keep looking and find somebody, or find a group, but haven't yet. So, it's just going down the list. So there's the Hebrew Israelites, are groups that believe that the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans are the biblical Israelites, based on, many prophecies in the Bible, but most notably Deuteronomy 28:68. And I agree. I don't know the specifics, of all the history and stuff, but we know now that Jesus is a dark-skinned man, God, but so his people would be dark skinned. It's not like the shades we get lighter and lighter, over the generations. The Jews for sure are dark skinned people, and based on the prophecies and really process of elimination, there would be no other group on earth who claim to be the Jews. Because we know the Jewish people in Israel, that they're the synagogue of Satan, based on Revelation 2:9, 3:9, and based on their behavior. They're very just anti-spiritual, carnal, the most carnal people on the face of the earth. Just kingpins of pedophilia and all their circumcision practices and stuff. We know that these people are not God's chosen people. If those were God's chosen people, no one would want to be around God, really. And that's just a fact. So we know that the Jews in Israel are not the real Jews. So now the question is, who are the real Jews? And it fits. Like, it's God's not going to make everything obvious. He's not going to tattoo real Jew on the foreheads of the people in this day and age. And there's no way we can tell through history or ancestry records or whatever, who the actual descendants of the 12 brothers are, 12 tribes of Israel. So, we go largely by the Spirit, but the general concentration of Israelites are in the United States. That I believe, and that I affirm. And what I'm about to talk about in this video will not change that. And I'm very thankful to learn that, because really it makes the Bible make sense. Because if we don't know that, really the Bible doesn't make sense as a historical document. Because it just sounds like a lot of fairy tales and stuff. Obviously now with the mark of the beast and stuff really pins it down, and we can observe and see it, happen, be realized and draw faith from that. But as using especially the Old Testament as a true historical record, we need to know, so we need to have some sense that the Israelites exist today, and they're not just completely scattered, and totally randomized around the world, and to some extent they are, but there have to be some general way to group them together, have similar ideas and customs and stuff, and that type of thing. So I still very much affirm the truth that all of the groups at least push is that that many of the Israelites will be here in America, and that will be the place where great deliverance will occur, just like Egypt, back in the day with Moses. It's the same thing, really, just different technology. So that's true. But what I see, so I'm talking about groups like GMS, IUIC, ISUPK, GOCC, House of Israel, there's a lot of different groups out there, and what it seems is that really all of them do not speak out against the news media, which is the first ding to me that I don't know a single group, even there's ITR, Israel Tried and Find, Good Samaritans, and Yasharala Milwaukee. These are all like different groups that I sort of watch, but I don't think any of them have watched Russian vids. So maybe I just got lucky and I followed Russian vids back when he was actually allowed to post videos. The fact that he's been kicked off YouTube should probably tell somebody what's going on, especially people in the Israelite movement, that what does that mean when YouTube kicks you off? And what does that mean when YouTube promotes you and pays you? What objective do you have to be serving if one is happening and then versus the other? It's not complicated. Russian Viz was exposing almost everything except for, the skin color of Jesus and, who the true Israelites are, which is an incredibly powerful fact, that we believe by faith at this point, but we believe to be true. But, he's, I've never seen his face on his videos, but I suspect he's probably like a white guy or something. But, he exposed literally everything else, just how all the leaders are in coordination because all the space explorations are fake. All the news media and all the so-called news stories are Freemason hoaxes, and he showed the numerology, skull and bones and the 33 and 666, everywhere. And, what else? Flat Earth obviously was a major thing that I got on through his channel, and then I moved on to Eric Dubé and others, and he brought out, Flat Earth on his channel. And so he was bringing out everything, and he was making it very scientific, and very clear, and very consistent how they operate, and a mindset. He could almost predict when the next shooting would happen. He almost knew exactly what to look for. He would look at the license plate, look at the clock, if it was in the picture, and they would be set at a certain time, 9/11 or 3/22, or the license plates would, have numerology behind it, and stuff. And he would just basically break down everything, and so he brought it out. And, again, maybe God, this is God's decision. He didn't want, I guess, to use the Israelites to bring that out. But, we have to be on board with that. It's like if we see that to be true, and then it's a work of God, to have deception on that level, because the Bible says, the deceived and the deceiver are in the hands of the Most High. So he's doing this. So we have to acknowledge it, and understand that he's doing it, in my opinion, to accelerate the end times narrative, because a lot of these killings would not happen under quote-unquote normal circumstances, and they would not be able to be videotaped with the detail that, or the maybe not detail is the right word, because a lot of the shots are very vague, but they wouldn't be able to have any kind of footage of them, in this way, and then collect the information on the quote-unquote killers or whatever they're doing. They have information on these people immediately, and a lot of the numbers that they use, their ages or like something, their names have like Masonic ties to them, and I'm like even thinking of the guy who was in, I'm thinking about this little kid, this Mormon missionary who was in these like multiple shootings or multiple terror events in different countries, and his name was Mason Wells. It's like, come on, like they're making it like completely obvious, like Mason, like that's ridiculous. So, and the M and the W twisted sideways makes a 33. So Russian Viz was pointing all this stuff out. He went to town on it. And so I don't see literally any of the Israelite groups. And if there is one out there, please send it my way. But, not to like call people out, but all the groups, I'm talking GMS, ISUPK, IUIC, GOCC, I think there's HODC, HOI, ITR, Good Samaritans, Yasharala Milwaukee, all these groups, like I don't hear any of them talk about like how fake the news is. Like I've heard here and there that they'll talk about, the Holocaust was a hoax, or some of them will say that the moon landing, or and One Body in Dallas, that's another group that I follow. They'll say the moon landing was a hoax, but not all of them, because I've heard some of them say, like we went to the moon and outer space and stuff, and it's like, it's really weird. I'm just trying to understand how this works. Like I don't believe all of them their leaders and their people have sold out, because like that's doesn't make sense. But their leaders certainly have, or they're just completely unaware. Like they just haven't been exposed to like channels like Russian vids, and don't have, the Most High did not lead them to that, and just let them know that he's doing all these things. He's doing all these hoaxes and stuff for a purpose. And I feel again like it's to accelerate the end times narrative, and just all the rights that are being removed from people around the world. And so that's something to look out for. It's like, again, I'm not saying don't listen to any of their messages or they're all wrong or whatever, but some of them push that the chip is the mark of the beast, the RFID microchip. Some don't. And then you have some that believe Babylon is American. Some don't. You have some that believe the earth is flat. Most of them don't. So that's really telling, like what's going on in Israel. And like it really makes sense why now that the so-called Negroes, especially Hispanics, and I don't even know very many Native Americans. I think Esau has killed most of them, which is ridiculous. But that it makes sense why those groups are in such an oppressed condition, because now seeing this, especially because it's obvious that the Creflo Dollars and stuff, that they're sellouts, and they're pimping their congregations and people who like buy their books and go to their conferences. But to think that now people who are even on like the quote inside, like even within the conspiracy realm, who know that, that there is a force on earth, forces or group of people on earth who are purposely enslaving, the entire world, but definitely the Israelites, that they're also kind of like selling out, and like not really helping their people, and I'm not saying not all the groups don't help their people. I'm sure they do, spiritually, financially, and otherwise. But, if you're not like pushing the truth completely, then there's something wrong. There's something that you're leaving, open, that there's faith that you could be infusing into people, definitely with flat earth, that you for some reason are not. So, it's like, this is the thing that's what I've noticed just from observing from the outside and living in certain, quote unquote inner city communities for a little while in East Harlem, just as an example. It's like, this explains really why, one of the reasons why they're in such a bad shape, because like, there's no one really advocating for them, like there is literally no one on the earth who is really looking out for the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, because even people on the inside, and a lot of these Israelite groups are strictly just saying how stupid, black people are, and like how evil they are, which I understand there's an incredible amount of evil in the world and in those communities. I understand that, that's you don't have to, look at the news, they're purposely vilifying in many ways, Negroes, Latinos and stuff. So that's obvious. But even those people, like they're supposed to be sort of advocating the sort of spiritual aspect of why they're in that condition, and what's the reason at the high level, at the most highest level, that it happened, and really sympathize with them, because they're a product of a narrative that the Most High has set, and he said it from the beginning. It's not like he made this up midway. He knew from the beginning that the earth would be in this condition with these people with this much wisdom, and that's it, and that's just the way it was. And there's, there was nothing, any individual could do about it. Now, that I'm not saying we excuse people's behavior on an individual level, but from a macro level, spiritual people, we should know, that why this is happening, and then proceed forward with petitions to God, saying like, we understand this is your narrative, but that this is overwhelming. We don't want to see our people like this, and there's very few like that. And I'm not saying none of them are, because obviously that's unfair, and I don't know these people personally, but it's starting to become more and more clear as to why Israel is in the condition that they're in. That even the people who say that they're truthers and like advocating and speaking out against the other people that are known sellouts, these people are kind of selling out, because they're not up on the stuff that we know now to be true, or we know now to be false, and they're not pushing that. So there's something really, going on here. And again, this has to be, the only way that this is possible is that if it's very spiritual, God wants it this way. But, even like amongst white people, it's like, you have like white groups like that would be considered kind of the flip version. And I'm not saying that any of these Israelite groups are hate groups, because I understand, my mind has been open to what they're preaching, and we know that there is evil on earth, and we know that certain people, red people, Esau, their descendants exist now, just like the descendants of Jacob exist now. So, I'm not at all saying this, but from the outside looking in, one might compare, these groups to like the KKK, which are like pro-white groups, for example. At least those leaders, even if they're manipulating like their people, like they'll speak highly of white people, like they'll even like white trash. Like you don't have to be like a billionaire, millionaire like Rothschild for the KKK to be like, that guy's ours. They'll be like, even like amongst the white trash, which I think it really is where the KKK is actually kind of seems like the most popular, like these back alley, backwoods places. Like they'll say like, just because you're white, you're valuable, like, and you're way more important than a black person, for example. And so there's not many groups that are saying that, in the so-called African American community. Like they're literally from the top down, all the leaders are just finding a way to take advantage of Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, which really explains why they're in this condition and they will never get out. It's like, from an earthly perspective, it is absolutely impossible to get out of a situation when all of your people, and even these Israelite groups, are very small in terms of like their footprint. Like they're not like, they don't have political power, or they're not in Congress or anything like that. They're at the quote unquote like, street level, at like the human, in the neighborhoods and this type of thing, which is great. But even them, they're not able to like coordinate themselves, and like create any kind of like, movement forward. And I know that obviously all this is spiritual, and there's no way humans will be able to fix this, but there's no progress at all, in my opinion. Like it's not even like a nudge forward, it's like, and again, this is part of the reason why this rescue, if the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans are going to be rescued from the condition that they're in, it has to be supernatural. There's no way, there's now more than ever, not to keep, saying this over again, but it's like now more than ever, we know that there is, the brothers and sisters in the inner city, they have no hope unless it comes from the heavens, because their leaders are just, even if they're not being malicious, they're totally confused, like they can't agree on anything, and like it's really hard to know, if the people at the top, are really just, whether they know that they're just pushing Freemason stuff, or like they're, just blinded to it, because like to me, like this stuff now, it's like obvious. It's like if you're a conspiracy theorist, which the Israelites, all of them have to be to one degree at least, where the conspiracy was that, the white Jesus was hidden to be a white man, and now we know that he's not. So that's like a major conspiracy. They believe, and they believe to be true that it is a conspiracy, and that Jesus was conspired to be, made white, but we know that he's black. So like if you believe that that's possible, and has happened successfully, that they've been able to cover the face of Jesus, his real look, then like what else is there to like, what hindrance would you have to believe in all these other ones, like that they would fake going into space, or like, they would hide the shape of the earth, or they'd be able to like put news stories on CNN that are completely fake and staged and stuff. It's like, that's like, those are, some of them are up there to that level, but some of them are easier than that. So I don't get it. I'm just kind of like rambling, but it's just like, be careful with these Israelite groups. I feel like I have the discernment, again, not anything I deserve or whatever, but I can watch them and sort of, pick and choose like what I believe to be true, and just certain things I know for sure are true. Like, for example, the earth is flat. Now I know that it's flat. Like there were times where I was like, not sure, and I had to think about it. And I'm like, I was still caught up on like, how could someone orchestrate this massive conspiracy? But the more I see arguments on both sides, and I see the ball earthers and just not even their arguments, which are weak, but their disposition, their countenance, just the way that they defend their beliefs, you can tell, like, like it's like, to me, it's like, and this is a really silly example, but I remember listening to this rap battle between Little Snoop and one of this Philadelphia Eagles guy. His name will come to me. He had a rap artist. This is actually a really cool rap battle, but and I'll post that in the description, but like, you could see these two rappers go back and forth, and you could tell like one of them was like real, like what he was rapping, he went through it, and he was like, his emotion, like it was almost like you could hear a pin drop after he was done. And then you hear the other guy. I'm not saying he's not talented, and Ti was the moderator of this rap battle, and he said, like, the other guy's good, but like you just stepped into the wrong place today, basically. He's just like, you just stepped, the real just burned you, burned up all BS basically in this room. And like, that's really what, when you have a discernment for what is, it doesn't have to be as obvious as that, but once you kind of see couple conspiracies play out, and like who's on both sides, and like, to me, like, that Jesus is dark skinned, you just have to go to any mainstream run-of-the-mill Christian, even in the Creflo Dollar churches, and start asking, what color is Jesus? Then they'll be like, they'll get uncomfortable. They already know that, and then they'll just like backpedal, or what does it matter, and this and that. So like, you'll get all that. And then to me now, it's like, if you go up to anybody, even like my friends who are PhDs, if I go to them saying, prove to me that the earth is a ball, they'll get uncomfortable. These people have doctorates, from like very, very good schools, and like a couple of my friends from Rice, they have PhDs in physics, and they don't want to talk about it. Although they'll just come with their lame arguments like, oh, then tidal waves couldn't happen, or what else have I heard? Oh, just, like, what's better evidence than a picture? Or just some just don't want to talk about it, like people who are just so entrenched in that. So like, like, it's just obvious, like, truth is like, for it's very like one-sided. Either you're like in the truth or not. And like, once you like have certain truths, and I'm not saying I have all of them, but once you have like a good handful of truths that are true, and then you can just go around to people and you could filter through them quickly. I'm not saying those people who resist are going to always resist, and I'm not saying people who have truth, or feel like they have truth, that that they can just relax and just do whatever they want. Like, we always have to keep growing and, trying to increase our, righteousness or piety and as much as we can. But you know what I'm saying? Like, you can go up and like filter people pretty quick. And so, you get that discernment. And so, like, this is the part that, you have to be around people. You have to find people that sincerely love truth. And that's just the beginning point, because just because you love truth does not mean that you will be righteous. That's just very much the beginning, but now it helps. You have to know the truth in order to have a chance to be righteous, because, if you don't know that the earth is flat, if you don't know that one sin is all sin according to the Bible, if you don't know that Jesus is black, a dark-skinned man, you don't know where his people are. You don't know where his love is, where the people that he's coming to rescue, you don't know what he looks like, you wouldn't be able to recognize him, literally. And, you would not know that the Bible's true, and then that the chip is coming. There is a mark of the beast, and you won't know all these things, and you won't know about what righteousness looks like unless you have an example like, Jesus Christ, we call him Yahushua, that is what righteousness looks like. And that's what the Most High wants for all people, to be like. And then we would have harmony. And we hope that happens soon in the kingdom of heaven, where, righteousness will be applauded and rewarded as opposed to evil. And so, this is a bit of a rant, but just, I'm not trying to throw everybody under the bus, because I know that, just like in a corporation, it's not that all people in the corporation are bad. It's just the leadership is bad. And so it's not that all people on the earth are bad. It's the leadership on the earth is bad. But we know the Most High and the angels, they'll be able to pluck, the wheat, the wheat from the tares. So like they know, like the those that, are part of the Jesus' fold, and those that are not. And they'll look like people from all different nations. And I think that's why these people that, now that I've kind of been more in the Israelite community, I kind of view Israelites in a way just kind of more likely to be Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. And I still believe that's true. But there's quite a few of, Israelites that are scattered around the world and will look like, white people, like Eric Dubé and Russian vids, even though I've never seen his face. We don't know, whether these people are Israelites or not, but, they're pushing truth, and they're pushing major truths that, really aside from a few points, like they don't push like the mark of the beast and stuff like that. But, like flat earth is a pretty broad encompassing truth that I don't know if these people would willfully take the chip. They don't seem like people who like the government that much. They certainly don't like NASA and the news media. So, if I were to, bet, not that I would want to bet on this, but I don't think that they would be like pro RFID chippers if that stuff came out. I think they would be also on the forefront of like, this is BS. Like government taking over, like, and even this guy, the dollar vigilante, Jeff Berwick, like these truthers are, out there, pushing major truths, like I don't know if he's a flat earther officially, but he talks about the corruption in the financial markets and, the news media and the government, and just how it's evil, and all this stuff. So like, they're also on the forefront as well. And we don't know if they were confronted with a black messiah, whether they would have any problems with that or not. So, again, I'm not saying just follow a group who's just really only pushing, the evils of the government and the corporate media, but we have to like follow our, have the most intense desire for truth ourselves, and we should always hunger for it the most, not look for other people who we think love truth. We have to love truth the most, and then, that will allow, the Most High to like deal with us in the sense that he will give us discernment to be able to understand, other people who are like-minded, or, people or other people who are stuck on certain things, and, maybe are still on a path, on a progression, we hope. So, just keep a heads up, especially now with the, internet and YouTube and, even stuff that I post, though I consider myself academically qualified, I still have, certain doubts about different things, and it's the way it should be. It's like there's still huge element of faith that's needed, even though flat earth intellectually makes sense to me. I mean, if I were to really actually believe that the earth is flat, like someone literally like could take me up and like show me the earth is flat, I would basically probably be, heavily suicidal, but in a good way. Like I would not want to be here, because like I would be like, dude, we know it's flat. Like it's a dome. If someone literally could just take me into the sky and like give me a big tour of like the flat earth, why would I want to be on earth when a majority of the people think that it's a ball? Like then it's obvious that there's a God, that there's a spirit world. Like no one just randomly creates a flat plane with a dome on it and like, all these little people running around. It's like that doesn't happen by a big bang, and it's like even the big bang is ridiculous. But to me, it's actually more likely that the big bang would produce a flat earth with a dome than would produce a bunch of different, balls spinning around each other going like that's more complicated. This is like a simpler statistical outcome than, a big bang producing like moon spinning around earth and earth around sun and all that. It's like, to me, this setup is much more simpler. It's more elegant, a flat plane, an ice ring, sun and the moon, and then a dome. It's like, again, I'm not saying either could happen by chance. Like they're obviously, anything could technically happen statistically, I guess, but obviously we know that the initial energy would have to come from someone. The initial matter, the actual rocks, the earth, would need to come from somewhere. And so, that, I'm not saying that this even has a statistical chance, but let's just say that that matter did exist and, they all just collided together. Technically, like, there's a 1 in a whatever probability that this could all happen, but, that, it doesn't make any statistical sense. But basically what I was saying was that just knowing that the flat earth is true would actually make you like insane to the point where you probably would not want to live here if you knew it with 100% certainty, because we would still go out and we could even show people the footage and they would not believe it, because God has programmed people to be certain things, and like they would not go along with that program. It's like they would not. Even the concrete evidence that we have now, it's like, if you were to sit down with it for a few hours, you probably, in the very least, be skeptical of the ball earth a little bit. But, there's people who won't even entertain that debate. So, we know that this is all by design and stuff, but it's just it's a really crazy thing, like that there are people that really, really claim to love truth and love their people, but you don't always see the fruit of it.